You've always been the one who feels everything, the one who reads the room before you even walk into it, the one who carries other people's pain like it's your own. As a Sigma empath, your silence isn't cold, it's sacred. You don't go quiet to punish anyone. You go quiet to survive, to shield your energy, to keep the noise out and your soul intact. Because you've learned the hard way, not everyone deserves access to your heart. So when you stop speaking, it's not because you don't care, it's because you care too much, and that care has been taken for granted one too many times. There's a limit, even for someone who feels as deeply as you do. You don't show it on the surface, but every room you walk into takes something from you. Every emotion, every shift in tone, every unspoken tension, you carry it, not because you want to, but because it's automatic. As a Sigma empath, you don't just observe people, you absorb them. Their stress becomes your heaviness, their sadness echoes in your chest. Their chaos scrambles your peace, and you hold it all in without complaint, hoping they'll feel better, hoping you can be the calm in their storm. But somewhere along the way, without realizing it, your energy starts to deplete. You become tired in a way sleep can't fix. The noise of the world feels louder. People's emotions start weighing you down instead of flowing through you. That's when your silence begins, not as a reaction, but as a necessity. You don't go quiet to distance yourself from others. You go quiet to return to yourself, to breathe again, to separate your feelings from the weight you've taken on. The silence becomes your reset button. It's the only space where you can hear your own thoughts without them being drowned out by the energy of everyone else. In that quiet, you begin to release what isn't yours. You sort through the emotional clutter, identifying which pain was yours and which you were just holding for someone else. Most people don't understand this part of you. They think your silence means something's wrong, that you're being cold or distant. But it's the opposite. Your silence is how you heal, how you recharge, how you protect what's left of yourself before there's nothing left to give. Because the truth is, being an empath doesn't mean you're endlessly available. It means you feel deeply. And sometimes you need space from everyone just to survive it. You didn't notice it at first. You were too busy caring, too busy showing up for everyone else. You gave your time, your energy, your heart. You listened when they needed to vent, comforted them through their chaos, supported them when they had nothing to offer in return. And you did it willingly because that's who you are. A Sigma empath gives without keeping score. You never expected grand gestures or applause. You just wanted to make people feel seen, understood, safe. But over time, the imbalance began to show. You were pouring into everyone else's life while yours quietly emptied. And the moment you realized you were the only one giving, it hit you hard. It's not that you wanted anything back, not attention, not gifts, not praise. You just wanted effort. A check-in, a moment of care when you were the one unraveling, but instead you were met with silence. Or worse, people who expected your emotional support like it was an endless resource. So you kept giving, hoping it would eventually be noticed, that someone would ask how you were doing, but no one did. And your spirit, so strong, so giving, started to fade. That's when the silence begins. Not out of bitterness, but out of burnout. You go quiet not because you've stopped caring, but because you've finally realized no one was caring for you. Your silence is your way of saying, I can't keep giving from a place that no one helps refill. It's your way of reclaiming your energy, of breaking the cycle of emotional depletion. And while they may notice your absence and wonder why you've gone quiet, they rarely connect it to the part where you gave everything and received nothing. Your silence isn't selfish, it's survival. Because even the most giving hearts need somewhere safe to rest. And when the world forgets to give that to you, you retreat to rebuild it for yourself. You always know when something's off, even if no one says a word. You can feel the shift in someone's energy before they admit anything. The fake smile, the forced laughter, the way their words don't quite match their tone. You pick it up instantly. That's the gift and the burden of being a Sigma empath. Your intuition is sharp, and it never stops scanning the emotional field around you. So when someone starts hiding behind half-truths or pretending to care when they don't, you don't need them to admit it, you feel it. And once that happens, everything changes. You might still smile, still speak, still play along, but inside, you begin to shut down. Because for you, emotional connection has to be real, safe, honest. The moment you sense insincerity, you stop feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. You stop sharing, you stop opening your heart, you stop trusting, not because you're fragile, but because you value your truth too much to keep offering it to someone who doesn't respect it. You've been burned before by people who said the right things but never meant them. So now when your gut warns you, you listen, you retreat, you protect your emotional space like a fortress. And to the outside world, it may look like you're suddenly distant, moody, or hard to reach. But what they don't realize is that you're not being cold, you're being careful. You're preserving your peace in a space that no longer feels emotionally honest. You're guarding your soul from manipulation, from empty words, from fake warmth. You've learned that not everyone deserves your rawness. And the moment you sense that someone is performing instead of connecting, you go silent. Not to punish them, but to protect the parts of yourself that took years to open. People often misread your silence. They think you're upset, giving the cold shoulder, or trying to make a point. But the truth is, when a Sigma empath goes quiet, it's rarely about revenge. It's not about punishment. It's about preservation. You're not angry. You're exhausted. You're tired of being misunderstood, tired of repeating yourself, tired of offering your energy to people who don't handle it with care. And in those moments, when the world feels too loud and your emotions too heavy, you choose silence, not as a weapon, but as a shield, a way to create space between your heart and the chaos around you. You don't want drama. You don't want attention. You want peace. Peace in your thoughts, peace in your spirit, peace in the parts of yourself you've spent years protecting. Because when you feel everything so deeply, even small interactions can shake your inner world. And if you're not careful, you start absorbing other people's negativity until you can't tell what feelings are yours anymore. That's why you retreat. That's why you go still. It's your way of stepping out of the storm and returning to your center. And yes, people will misunderstand you. They'll take your quiet as coldness. They'll say you're being distant or difficult, but they'll never truly understand what it takes to be you, to carry so much emotional weight and still be expected to smile through it. So instead of explaining yourself for the 100th time, you go quiet. You let the silence protect you, heal you, hold you in a way no person has lately. Because sometimes the only way to find peace is to stop speaking and reclaim your space, one quiet breath at a time. You're not being cold, you're not being difficult, you're simply watching. Because when a Sigma empath goes silent, it doesn't mean they've shut off emotionally. It means they've entered observation mode. You've learned that words can lie, but energy never does. So you take a step back, you go quiet, not because you're unsure of your own feelings, but because you're unsure of theirs. You're evaluating, studying, picking up on the little things, how someone treats you when they don't need you, how they respond when you're quiet, how their actions line up with their promises. You don't need to confront, you don't need to test, you simply pay attention. And in that silence, the truth reveals itself. You've been burned before by trusting too quickly, giving too much access to people who wore masks well. So now you're cautious, selective. You've learned that not everyone deserves to sit close to your heart, and not everyone who says, I care, actually shows it. And that's why you go quiet. That's why you pull back, because behind that silence, a decision is being made, and it's one you won't reverse easily. You're deciding, is this person real, or are they just saying what I want to hear? Can they hold my truth, or do they only show up for the version of me that's easy to handle? And while others may mistake your distance for detachment, what you're really doing is protecting your peace. You don't throw people out of your life without thought. You weigh every interaction, every inconsistency, every moment of silence that wasn't filled with support. And when you're done observing, you act decisively. Either they're in or they're out. No drama, no second round of explanations. There's a quiet final shift in your energy, because your silence isn't indecision, it's discernment. And when a Sigma empath chooses who gets access, they do it with precision, not emotion. There was a time you'd explain yourself endlessly, a time when you'd overthink every message, every silence, every shift in someone's energy, just trying to understand what went wrong. You gave people the benefit of the doubt over and over, even when their actions clearly told you the truth. but not anymore. As a Sigma empath, you've grown past that phase. You no longer have the patience or the emotional bandwidth for people who play games with your heart. The manipulation, the inconsistency, the hot and cold behavior, you see it now for what it really is, a distraction from your peace. And instead of calling it out, instead of begging to be heard, you respond with something far more powerful: silence. You don't fight for clarity anymore. You don't chase conversations with people who never really listened. You've learned that explaining yourself to someone who doesn't respect your energy is just another way of staying stuck. So when the patterns repeat, when the vibe feels off, when your intuition starts to buzz, you don't argue. You don't plead. You don't defend your heart to people who only value it when it's convenient. You simply leave quietly. Not because you don't care, but because you do. You care about your sanity, your boundaries, your emotional freedom. Your silence isn't passive, it's a decision, a final answer to people who thought they could keep pushing your limits without consequences. And most of them won't even notice you've left until it's been too long since they felt your presence, too long since they heard your voice, too long since they had access to the empathy they once took for granted. Because when a Sigma empath outgrows emotional games, they don't announce their exit, they become unreachable. When a Sigma empath goes silent, most people assume it's personal. They think you're being distant, cold, or withdrawn. But they don't understand that your silence isn't about them, it's about you. It's about healing. Not the surface level kind of healing that comes with distractions or forced positivity, but the deep, raw kind, the kind that requires space, solitude, and complete emotional honesty. You're not hiding, you're not running away. You're doing the only thing that has ever truly brought you back to yourself, going inward. Because sometimes the pain you carry runs so deep that words no longer feel big enough to hold it. And when that happens, silence becomes your only sanctuary. In the quiet, you're not avoiding the pain, you're sitting with it, feeling it fully, letting it rise and fall without judgment. You're unpacking old wounds, sorting through emotional weight, trying to understand not just what happened, but how it changed you. You're rebuilding trust with yourself, redefining your boundaries, and most importantly, you're learning to give yourself the care you spent years offering to everyone else. You're not waiting for someone to come save you. You're saving yourself slowly and intentionally in the way only empaths know how, through stillness and reflection. And while the world keeps spinning, while people wonder where you've gone, you're doing sacred work behind the scenes, the kind of work that doesn't need to be seen to be real. They may not notice your absence, but that's okay, because this part of your journey was never meant for them. It's for you, for the version of you that's ready to stop bleeding quietly and start healing unapologetically. Because sometimes the deepest transformation begins in the silence no one else hears. You may think they'll come back. You may believe their silence is temporary, that they just need space, time, clarity. But what most people don't understand about a Sigma empath is this: once they've healed, they don't go back. Not because they're bitter, not because they hold a grudge, but because healing shows them just how much pain they tolerated, just how much energy they gave away, just how long they stayed where they were emotionally starving. And once they've seen the truth with clear eyes, they refuse to re-enter the space that dimmed their light. Their silence was never meant to punish, it was meant to protect, to give them time to reclaim their strength. But now that they've found it again, they're gone for good. During that silence, they rebuilt themselves piece by piece. They remembered who they were before the damage. They forgave, they let go, they grieved the story they once clung to. And most importantly, they chose peace over connection. Not every goodbye is loud. Not every ending comes with closure. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the form of a calm, unwavering absence. That's what happens when a Sigma empath heals. They exit without warning, without explanation, without drama, because returning would only undo everything it took to find themselves again. And maybe the people who once hurt them won't understand. Maybe they'll send a message, reach out months later, or try to reopen the door. But that door no longer exists. The version of the empath they had access to, the one who overgave, who forgave too quickly, who made excuses for the pain, no longer lives there. Their silence wasn't a break. It was a boundary, a decision, a permanent goodbye wrapped in peace, strength, and self-respect. If you've ever gone quiet, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself, then this was for you. Your silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom, it's survival. It's the voice of your soul choosing peace over pain, clarity over confusion, and healing over chaos. And if the world has misunderstood your quiet, just know you're not alone here. This space was made for hearts like yours, strong, sensitive, and beautifully guarded. Subscribe if you haven't already, or come back whenever the noise gets too loud. Your energy is sacred. Protect it loudly or silently. Either way, you're finally home.